Hello, everyone. This is Dale, your host of Coffee Time Again, where we expose the truth. And today we're exposing the truth in two locations, one of which is me. The first 15 minutes of this recording, I forgot to record. I did not hit the record button, so that first 15 minutes of on air is gone. We did cover all the subjects that we were talking about, so they are in there. You have them. You're not going to miss anything out of that, but you're going to miss the reaction and back and forth that we had between us while we did that. And I apologize to you. I apologize to Sasha for doing it. And it was a mistake, and I've made many mistakes in my life. This is just one, and there will be more, I'm sure of it. The second thing we're going to expose is childhood abuse, both and adult abuse, and DEA and the government and the lies they're telling us, and everything else concerned with that, and what we need to do to change things to get back to where we only have two genders, not 57,000 genders out there, and stop teaching kindergartners about genders and sex education. It's the last thing they need. They don't need sex education until they're in at least sixth or seventh grade, and even that's a pushing it a little, in my opinion. So take care, enjoy yourselves, get a cup of coffee, and sit back and enjoy the show. Thank you very much for your time. Before I get so involved with what I'm doing that, of course, and I'm 75 years old too, so that doesn't help my memory at all.
No, that age thing kind of sneaks up on you, right?
Yeah, it sure does. So you feel it's a bad idea to grant kids the autonomy to opt for gender-related medical interventions? What age do you think would be a 25?
I don't think for medical, yeah. I
Then,
know for a long time, even it might even still be, but they wouldn't allow women to get their tubes tied before the age of 25.
mhm,
They just outright would refuse to allow that woman time to mature and decide, okay, yeah, you know what? I do want to have children one day. Maybe I shouldn't do this.
yeah,
Same with men. They wouldn't allow them to get vasectomies done until 25, if not older, for the same
yeah.
purpose.
'Cause-
So 25, because that's when the prefrontal cortex is done developing, that should be the go-to age for medical intervention.
yeah. Here's one that really threw me. Is toxic masculinity as pervasive as it is portrayed to me? Interesting way to phrase that.
Yes. And no, it's not. It goes, in my opinion, it ties into that victim mentality. As soon as a guy says no, some women will view that as an affront on her, as an offense. And then they will warp it into a toxic masculinity. Or if a guy is being strong, stern, assertive, instead of viewing it as an assertive personality trait, it's warped and twisted into toxic masculinity. If guys state they have a preference, like I like, I don't know, tall, skinny women, or I like short women with curly hair, whatever their preference is, as soon as they have one, they get jumped on
Yeah,
because of toxic masculinity. It's toxic that you don't like heavier set girls. It's toxic that you don't like skinny girls. It's toxic that you don't like blondes. It's toxic that you don't like brunettes. Like, men can't win for losing.
no,
Everything that they do is deemed toxic by somebody. And it's all tied to that victim mentality.
yeah. And that can create victim mentality in a male.
Oh yeah, well, it's brutal.
Yeah,
Young boys are growing up believing that they're toxic
yeah,
because they're boys. Like they haven't lived. They're, like I'm talking 11-year-olds,
yeah.
12-year-olds. They are viewing themselves as toxic simply because they're male. And
They're
it's like, at what point have we gone too far? Because he hasn't done anything. He's a child, but he views himself as toxic
yeah,
simply because he's a guy.
and he's
That's a problem.
he's gonna grow up having major problems.
Huge.
Yeah.
And then people end up getting walked on in those cases, right? Like
Hmm.
if you view
Yeah.
yourself as toxic instantaneously, then you're a good person right off the hop. You already know you've got a conscience and you are wanting to be a good person,
Yeah.
which then will turn you into a doormat
Yeah.
because you're going to try extra hard to not be toxic.
Right. Not only are you going to be extra hard into it, talk to them when they believe them talk they are toxic. They get so passive aggressive, which causes
Oh yeah.
more problems.
Yeah. Yeah, passive aggressive is a horrible trait. It's
Oh,
it's one of the worst.
it is. I'd rather talk to somebody that's aggressive than passive aggressive. It's easier.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, it is. At least you know where you stand, right?
Yeah, I gotta. Well, my younger sister was narcissistic, borderline.
Mm,
Oh, she suffered the same abuse I suffered. And both my sisters and my other brother had suffered the same abuse. We all suffered the same abuse. My older sister has never recovered. She's still a victim. I'm a survivor.
yeah.
I got through this. I've had some of the best therapists in the world, and I got through this. That was the reason I could write my book and be truthful with what I said. No names, but be
Yeah.
truthful about what was going on in my household. Both my parents are dead, which helps too. What was that? Anyway, it and my younger sister, my younger brother was passive aggressive as all get out.
Mm-hmm.
My older sister is very headstrong, obstinate, uh, assertive, not assertive, aggressive. She's very aggressive. I love her dearly, and we're very close. But boy, is it difficult for me sometimes.
Yeah, it would be.
I'm going to throw in a question that you don't have on here about now, but I think it's important. Where does spirituality come in?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
Yeah, where does spirituality come in to help or hinder
Are you talking about in general or for me in my book?
in general?
In general, spirituality is important for everybody.
Okay,
People who have a belief system in God, be it the Christian God, well, Catholic is still Christian,
yeah,
or whichever form of religion,
Buddhist,
they tend to bounce back and heal faster through their faith in
yeah,
their God. So when you're talking about healing, it's super important for whomever with whatever religion they do choose to follow.
yeah. I agree with you. I agree that if you're a Buddhist, you're a Buddhist, and you can still heal.
Oh yeah.
And if you're a Muslim, you can still, because you got a God you can pray to and talk to and be faithful with. Yeah, because I was curious about that. How does personal responsibility and accountability help personal growth? That's
It
that's
helps.
obvious.
Yeah, that one's a little bit obvious, but it's a problem in today's society, right? Like we talked about earlier before we were recording, people don't take responsibility. They like to pass the buck off, blame everybody else around them for why things aren't working the way that they would like them to. But if they could, figure out how to take personal responsibility and accountability for their actions or lack thereof, then that would allow them the ability to have personal growth and to move forward in life.
Yeah,
It's one big circle essentially.
yeah.
Without one, you end up the whole thing falls apart.
I didn't accept personal responsibility or any accountability until I was 39 and quit drinking because I turned out to be a good, healthy alcoholic. And I quit in '89, and that's when things changed for me. Things
Yeah,
started going better. Because
they tend to.
then I developed my faith and found my church and started accepting responsibility through the help of some very good therapists. Well, I've had a few bad ones, but I've had some really good ones. Has helped me through the roughest parts of this. So,
That's good.
what's your best advice for abuse survivors?
My best advice for abuse survivors would be the personal responsibility and accountability. Don't allow the victim mentality to overtake your life.
Yeah, don't let the victimizer rule you.
Yeah,
Because I've seen that
that's what it
happen a
really
lot.
boils down to.
Because you're letting them rule your life, even though they're no longer with you and they're no longer abusing you. You're still going along with what they want.
Yeah, they're like a parasite, like a
Yeah,
worm that's just wormed its way into your brain, and
right.
then they're whatever it is that they instilled in you, that fear, that trauma, whatever it is, if you don't root it out, you end up being re-victimized and re-victimized and re-victimized, and you'll just keep on that horrible cycle
Yeah,
forever unless you decide to step out of it. But in order to step out of it, you need that personal responsibility and accountability
yeah.
and
And
start pushing yourself forward.
you gotta. I'm a firm believer in therapy works. Absolutely. Not only for several reasons, and you know them as well as I do. That they need to find a therapist that can work with them, and it's no shame to fire a therapist.
No, and you do need to do interviews with them
Yeah,
because they're still people. And that's another thing is people just think, oh, therapist good. It's like, no, no, no.
no,
Just because therapist A is good for Bob does not mean you and therapist A are going to get along.
right.
Like you need to take that time and interview the therapist to figure out which one you click with. Because
That's
whoever you click with is who will help you heal a heck of a sight faster than who you're going to be button heads with.
that's right, and I totally agree with that. This is a question I didn't particularly like, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What type of abuse did you experience?
All of it,
Okay,
depending on which point in time in my life,
yeah,
all of it.
yeah. I find saying if it was abuse, it was happening in my household.
Yeah. I in my the book that I wrote, Victims of Virtues, is from birth to 19.
Mhm.
And in that one, it's a lot of sexual abuse.
Yeah,
And then there is some physical abuse, obviously emotional and mental abuse are just tied in there, right?
yeah.
And then I am writing a second book that will be detailing 19 to probably 35.
Okay,
And in that one, I'll be talking about physical abuse
yeah.
and monetary abuse and all kinds of other abuses because
Spiritual abuse,
if it's
financial,
there,
yeah. If it's there,
I've been through it.
I understand. I'm glad you became a survivor.
Oh yeah, survivor. I'm a warrior.
That's even better. I'm no warrior, but am a survivor. Are men and women the same?
No, that they're just not. And I know that media and everybody says that they are, and say la vie, they can have their opinions, but we're not. The
Oh,
way we view situations is different. The way we react to situations is different. If we were the same, I wouldn't need my husband to open the pickle jar.
no.
Just start right there, right? Like on a physical level, we're physically different. But
Mhm.
on a mental level, we're mentally very different, just in literally every which way you look at it. Sure, there's going to be anomalies. There will always be anomalies. There will be some people who are more masculine and some that are more feminine. But on average, women tend to be more nurturing, more kind, more sweet. especially when you're talking about working with children, where men tend to be more assertive, more protective, and they have more of a courage to them. Like if there's a fire burning, you don't have to be a firefighter. A guy walking past will have the urge, if he doesn't have the impulse control, he will end up in that fire trying to rescue whoever's in there.
Yep.
Women won't. Women tend to be the ones that will stand back and look and go, oh boy, let's call 911. We need to get help. But
Yeah.
they're not going to throw caution to the wind and run into a burning building unless a child's in there, in which case women would probably run in there too.
Yeah.
But there's fundamental differences between men and women. And I guess it's always been there, but there's
Yeah.
a confusion between men and women.
Yeah.
Remember that book from Once Upon a Time, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, right? Like there's a difference. And when women look at men and the way that they respond and react, like the way their expressions, for instance, a guy will show his love and care through doing, through actions, right? Like husband will change his wife's tires.
Yeah.
That's an action that demonstrates his care. If he didn't care, he wouldn't change her tires.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Where a woman shows her emotions normally it's through physicality. So she'll walk by and touch his back, rub his head, something like that. They make physical contact, women do, where men do action-based behaviors to show that they care. There's so very many differences. And with the way society has been, they're trying to push the idea that we're all the same, but by doing so, we're doing a disservice to both, to men and to women, because women's superpower is their femininity. Mm-hmm. It is that nurture, it is that kindness, it is that intuition that women they just have. And it's doing a disservice to men and masculinity, because toxic masculinity is now apparently everything a guy does, depending on who you talk to. Mm-hmm. But anything that men excel at is being stomped out. They want everybody just to be the same.
Yeah.
And that's not okay. We complement each other. And when you have a husband and a wife, you're stronger together because your weaknesses and strengths complement each other's.
Right.
For instance.
Where did I read that somewhere? Something similar to that years ago. I read something like that, where complementary differences.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting. Now, there's things in relationships that are just written in stone. You almost have to do them. And communication, effective communication is one of them. So,
yeah, if you don't, it's going to fall apart. So
yeah.
You may as well bite the bullet and start talking.
Yeah, I wish I had them. I wouldn't be divorced now. But of course, if I'd have sobered up a few months before I did, I would have been better off too. A couple of years before I did. I sobered up 2 months after our divorce was final.
That's some bad timing.
Yeah, I had some bad timing back then. This probably pertains to the government of Canada. I don't know. So far, I haven't seen much in the way of it here in the United States. But how is the government's new approach to addiction management a failure? Of course, it's a failure. It's a government project.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Yeah, that is mostly Canada. But I did mention San Francisco, for instance, for America. But in Canada, we have laws where they've basically legalized opiates. So they hand out hydromorphone, is the prescription specifically, to addicts to keep it. It's called safer supply.
Yeah.
That's what it's referred to as. And on paper, sure, maybe it sounds like a good plan. Give them hydromorphone from a doctor so that way it's not laced, for instance, and they know what they're taking. So that's the rationale. the reality of it is obviously going to play out very different. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. So we have a whole slew of people who are getting daily prescriptions of hydromorphone, upwards of, I was reading articles where people are getting like 40 pills a day
Oh my
of 8
God.
milligram hydromorphone. And this is to stop them from doing the fentanyl. But it doesn't, right? It doesn't. They take their hydromorphone and they take fentanyl, or they'll get the hydromorphone and they turn around and sell it for $1 a pill because it's just everywhere now.
Yeah.
And children, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds are purchasing it off the street,
Yep.
8 milligram hydromorphone. Children are now developing opiate addictions because of this nonsense. But then the addict will take the money that they got from selling their prescription, turn around and go and buy fentanyl anyways with it.
Yep.
And we're obviously feeding into now the homeless crisis because we're giving them quite literally free opiates.
Oh God.
You don't have that ambition, that motivation to get clean if your drug is provided for you.
No.
At all. Like there's nothing. You're not uncomfortable. And as you know, through addiction counseling, the only way that they're willing to get off of the dope is through being uncomfortable. They have to be uncomfortable in their situation. Another term for that is rock bottom.
Yep.
But you have to be uncomfortable. That's what'll make you want to change and do better. We're here in Canada. They're giving them out the tools. They have safer supply, harm reduction. And we even have, what do they call them? I don't remember what their terminology is, but they're locations, safe injection sites.
Yeah.
Sorry. So it's a location that you can go to do the dope, whatever the dope is, free of judgment. They give them the tools. So you have vending machines in British Columbia, for instance, that will give you straws to snort cocaine. They'll give you crack pipes. They'll give you whatever it is you need, needles, alcohol swabs, whatever your drug tool is, you get it for free here. And then they will also give you the opiate, the hydromorphone. So we have a massive drug epidemic, addiction epidemic happening.
Yes.
Because they've just quite literally, they're giving them the dope, the tools, and the drug den. Have at her. It's a free for all. Do what you will.
Yeah.
Which obviously the secondary issues with that is theft.
Right.
It's crime. It's violence. It's homelessness. It's the food banks are running empty.
Yeah.
It's absolutely horrific. It's just horrific. And while we're doing all of this, they're simultaneously underfunding the rehabs and the detoxes.
Yep. That's what happened here.
Why?
I think there's in Denver, there used to be a detox about every corner.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where I got my start. But now you have to really look for. I know where one is. That's it. I just know where the one is. Just down the street from where I live, as a matter of fact, about 50 blocks. But so I can take it. You're not much in favor of reduced harm reduction.
No, I think on paper it may have, if you weren't thinking it through, looked like a good plan, but in action, it's horrific.
Yeah,
it's just absolutely horrific, and they should have stopped it years ago.
Yeah,
and not continued doing it. As soon as you've seen the problems that are coming from it, it should have been halted.
Yeah,
and we should have reinvested that money out of giving people free opiates and free drug tools and into the detox facilities and the rehab facilities.
Right.
But we haven't. Instead, we're just allowing people to destroy their lives. That's what they're doing. And they're taking everybody around them down with them.
I was just going to say, it's a family affair.
Yep.
Addiction is a family affair. And it doesn't mean just your nuclear family, but your extended family.
Everybody and your neighbors,
your friends.
Because you don't even have to know people. As long as you are causing trouble because you're coming down, for instance. I know in my own experience working at the shelter systems, a lot of people coming down are the ones that would really start lashing out.
Yep.
Well, if you're coming down at, a fast food place, everybody around you is being affected by your hostility.
Mhm.
You, they're not, they're not involved with you, but you are negatively impacting them and you are scaring
Yes.
everybody around you.
Yes.
And we are just handing it out to everybody here.
Portland, I think Portland, Oregon is doing that too. I think, in fact, I'm pretty sure it's just Portland at this point, as well as San Francisco. But San Francisco is just in a hell of a mess anyway, with other issues.
Oh, yeah. San Francisco, from my understanding, is pretty similar to the way Canada's run.
Yeah, just from what you've been saying, I can see the similarities between what's happening there. Like I said earlier, I have a friend that belongs to my church who lives in Toronto,
Okay.
and she talks a little bit about this because she serves in as a mercy person, some type of mercy. She told me, but I forgot what she called it. But she works in hospitals for people instead of because you don't have a detox, they got to take you somewhere, and they ain't gonna take
Yep.
you to jail.
Nope.
So you overload the hospital system.
Yep. They do. And they don't fund homeless shelters enough either. So the homeless end up in the emergency rooms
Yep,
to warm up because it's minus 30 outside.
yep,
So obviously they can't stay outside. You get frostbite within minutes.
that's right.
So then the ERs are full of homeless people that are just there to warm up, but they do still have the mental health issues. A
Yep,
lot of them do, at least. And they're, the ones that have schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, or they're hearing auditory hallucinations are causing a scene and making things difficult in the ER, but they have nowhere to go because we don't fund the homeless shelters. It's a hot mess.
it's a major malfunction. I just hope
That's
we can get things straightened up there. Of course, we need to get things straightened up down here too.
Oh, yeah. But you guys are well on your way, right?
Yeah, well, one of the first things Trump did is close all the federal DEI funding and programs and told the people go home. Because you got till the day to finish closing up shop. Gave them 2 days. Says
That's
you,
that's good though.
yeah. Now we got a bunch of federal employees unemployed.
That is the downside, but meritocracy is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, and not only that, but these unemployed federal agents, federal government people will find a job somehow.
Oh, they'll find a job and you guys won't have to pay for their wages with tax dollars.
That's right. So
It's a win-win.
so he's we'll come out of it, I think, if we can just keep him around 4 years. Let him do what he needs to do. Not what he wants to do, but what he needs to do. I don't think
Yeah.
buying Greenland is such a good idea, but what was the name?
It
Huh?
makes sense though. It makes sense.
Well, from a defense, national defense, yeah. But they don't
For
even
that and for because of the northern sea, it's opening up, right?
yeah,
Like there's a lot of the ice is melting, it's opening up, and you've got some hostile countries that have made icebreaker boats, I think they're called,
yeah,
or ships. They're not boats, they're ships, but they have been floating around up in the north, in the northern sea,
yeah.
and they are hostile countries. So we do have issues, and Canada's military is not good.
Not good.
So we
Ours
don't
is
have not nearly enough service members up there to keep an eye on what's going on.
yeah. Well,
It's finicky.
I did a show on our borders. I'm going to do another one here pretty soon on our southern and northern borders. And the Canadian border with the U.S. is 2,000, almost 3,000 miles long. From 2 to
I
3,000,
think it's long.
about
I think
3,000
it's longer than that.
to Puget Sound. I think's what JJ said it was at, but he said there was 50 Border Patrol agents for that entire area with the United States. It's as bad as the northern. The southern border and the northern border are just as bad. So that's another reason he wants to. I'm going to get a hold of JJ and do another, because he's a Border Patrol agent. I'm going to get a hold of him and do another show with him. What was the name of your book? I forgot.
Victims of Virtues.
Victims of Virtues. Okay. Do you have a website?
No, but I'm on X.
X?
Yeah. X, Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, I'm there too. Because normally what I do is when I do part of the editing, I put the website right above your head so everybody sees it. But I'll put the book up on yours. That way they'll see
Yeah.
the book. Because I've discovered through my research on my analytics, they don't read my show notes.
Most people don't.
No. So to get real information out, I got to put it in writing.
Right on the screen.
Right on the screen, which I don't mind doing. I tell you in advance that it's probably going to be mid-February before I get this published because I thought my host for my shows lost me 800 milligrams. I keep saying milligrams. 800 gigs.
Oh, okay.
But I've used 69% of it already.
Oh dear.
So, and it's getting close to the end of the month, so it'll be probably the first, second week of February. I may get lucky and find a spot to stick it in early. Because at the end of the month, I get all my space back, so I can get yours up there. And I've got 6 more to do between now and the end of February. Podcast to do.
You're busy.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get a hold of JJ, so that'll be another one. But anyway, what time is it anyway? Oh, we got lots of time yet. We're not nowhere near out of time. I'm out of questions though, because I used up all your questions, but what is it you need to say?
Nothing specific that I need to say. I do hope that those who take the time to read the book benefit from it.
Yeah.
That was the purpose in writing it. It wasn't just a thing to do. It was done with the intent of helping people.
Mm-hmm.
And thus far, those who have read it, I've received all 5-star reviews.
Good. Where do you get
Everybody is Amazon.
Amazon. Okay. Is it in Audible? Yeah. You got it in Audible yet?
No.
No.
No, I've got ebook and paper book.
Okay.
Paperback.
Yeah. Because I do a lot of, I do read, obviously, but I like Audible really well because I can lay back, make my coffee or my soda or my tea or whatever and listen to it and get a lot more out of it than I can if I'm trying to read it.
I will look into how to do that.
Yeah. I get a lot of clients who, not clients, listeners who have asked me, can I get it Audible? Because they like Audible too. So it's something to take a look at and see if you wish to do it.
Yeah, I will look into how. Like I don't even know how to go about getting it published that way.
I'll find out when I get published my book because I'm definitely going to make it Audible. And I'm at least a year away from publishing my book, so I just had a question in my mind. I was going to ask you, what the devil was it? Oh, when does the next book come out?
I'm still writing it.
Yeah.
I do tend to write pretty quickly, but I would guess the second one will probably be out by the end of this year.
All right.
That would be my best educated guess.
Yeah. I usually write pretty quick, but I had to stop on my book for a while, but I'll get back onto it this week. As soon as I find time.
right? It's
Yeah.
evasive.
My time is pretty well. Well, I'm booked up for the rest of this month. And doing podcasts is a little bit of work.
Yes.
Do you do one?
No.
No.
I thought about it. I researched it and I went, I don't have time for that.
No.
I
If
just
I wasn't
don't.
retired, I wouldn't have time. And
Between I
on top of that, I'm advertising as a spiritual advisor,
Mhm.
life coach, give me a little extra income. The government over here doesn't pay a whole lot. And I'm living on government Social Security and VA benefits.
I don't think the government anywhere pays a whole lot, to be honest with you.
Probably not. What's the solution? What's the answer
To what?
to this whole nonsense of the genderization and this whole thing that kids being traumatized by adults to be the different gender or
I don't think there is an easy solution. We have two very opposing views. We have obviously the people who are pushing this ideology, and then you have the people who are pushing back against it. There seems to be very few people in the middle. So you've got two very opposing views coming at each other.
yeah,
And when it comes to that, you're not going to get an easy answer. You're going to have a group of people who are upset because they feel like their rights are being trampled on, but they're ignoring the fact that they are trampling on kids' rights.
yes,
Kids shouldn't be put in the position to make those types of choices.
no,
I, they're just, like I said earlier when you and I were talking, we can't allow them to choose their own supper.
no,
If they were free to choose their own supper, they would be choosing junk food.
yep,
That's just what they would be choosing.
yep,
And it's no fault of their own. They're children. Junk food tastes delicious. It's
yep,
easy. It's got all that addictiveness to it, if you will,
yeah,
but it's not good for them.
I'm still addicted.
It's not good for them. So adults step in, we make the choices, and we cook them chicken breast or steak or whatever with some
Fish,
veg,
yeah,
fish, right? We force them to eat their broccoli. And why do we do this? Because that's what's best for them.
right,
So I don't know where along the lines it became okay to allow children to make dramatic choices like changing their gender, opting for medical intervention, totally changing the trajectory of their life when we say they're not responsible enough to choose their own supper.
right,
It does not make sense. There is no rationale here at all that will make sense.
no,
And because of this, there is no easy answer.
no, there
There's
wouldn't
none.
would be. I didn't think there would
It's
be, but I thought I'd ask anyway because my listeners would expect me. Well, what's the answer? They're going to want to know, and there is no answer, no easy answer
no, there is no easy answer.
because we have,
It we need a cultural shift. We need to swing back. That's the only answer that there is, and
yeah,
that takes a lot of individual people being vocal and stating, we can't keep doing this. We can't expect children to make lifelong commitments. They're not allowed to get married. At least in marriage, you can opt for a divorce.
yeah,
Once you've had a surgery, you cannot undo that.
no,
Once you've rendered yourself infertile, you cannot undo that.
no,
So we're telling them you can't make choices that you have the ability to course correct on, but you can make choices that there is no ability to course correct on. That again, there is no rationale. That does not make logical sense.
No, it doesn't.
And we need to stop, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah,
it needs to end. It's
that's
child abuse.
DEI and gender identification. Let the kids decide to have their mac and cheese, and we'll eat the broccoli.
Exactly. It's not okay.
No, it's not. So
And then you have the other people, like in the book, I talk about myself, right?
yeah,
Like, that is a good portion of the book. And I was a kid in the 90s. And in the 90s, I was called a tomboy.
yeah,
That was it. I was a tomboy. There was nothing further to that. I was totally cool to play sports. I was totally cool to hang out with the boys,
yep,
rough and tumble. That that was it. And then I grew up and I stopped being a tomboy. And then I became a mom. And
yeah.
now I'm a mom and a wife. But if I had been today, a child today,
Oh,
being a tomboy would be leading to questions. Well, what gender are you? Are you sure you're a girl?
yeah,
Well, if you're, all up into the guy stuff, maybe you're a guy. And they're all open-ended questions. And because it's all based on feelings, like the entire gender ideology is based on a feeling, right? I feel like I'm in the wrong body, or I feel like I'm this gender or that gender. It's all feelings. But because it's based on feelings, there's no solid foundation.
no,
None. And then you've got the other side to that is, how do you know that what you're feeling is a girl, for instance? You have no actual basis of comparison.
no,
You've always been in the same body, so you have no idea what it feels like to be the opposite gender. You're just assuming you know. You're
yeah,
making an assumption on how you think you feel, but this is all assumption. That it's all based on feeling. Therefore, there's no solid foundation. And we're allowing people to make humongous lifelong changes,
mhm,
literally based on an assumption and a feeling.
yeah.
It's bananas. It's absolutely bananas, especially to do this to children.
Was brainwashing.
Yeah. And especially because it's all open ended with no actual answer.
Right.
It's not like history, it's not like math where you can get to a conclusion. There is no conclusion because emotions are always fluctuating and changing.
Right. And there would I was a child of the 50s and 60s. So I had a whole different experience than what you had.
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
I grew up in a town that had 300 people in the entire county.
Oh, wow.
There was 65 students, sixth grade through senior,
Oh,
in my
wow.
school. It was a great place to grow up, I tell you. Crete was a great place in the 60s and 60s when I lived there. I left there in 69. Never went back. I'm going back up. I still got some friends up there that are still alive, believe it. I'm shocked that some of them are still alive the way they reacted as kids. Probably they think the same thing about me. But anyway, we need to end this, Sasha. I am so honored to have you here and talk about this. I thank you
Thank you for
very,
having me.
yes. And if you don't mind, and I'm going to put you on my list to call back in about 6 to 8 months to a year. If you don't mind, once you get your new book out.
Yeah, for sure.
All right,
I've thoroughly enjoyed this.
yeah, so did I. It was a great conversation, great thing to do. Uh, I'm going to do this. Hang on for just 1 second.